for those of you that are watching this after the fact, um, we are here for a GIS career talk with Raven Dunson. My name is Eric Bettis. I am an assistant professor here at Wayne State University, and we are going to talk about aspects of Raven's career as well as how GIS has impacted what she does, and just kind of the choices that she was able to make as a result of having the skill set. All right, so Raven, whenever you are ready, lay it on us.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Raven Dunson. I currently work for the Detroit Land Bank Authority as a research and analysis assistant manager in the inventory team. I've been here for the last 7 months. Previously worked in demolition and construction for 4 years. 3 of that was as a GIS analyst. 1 of that was a planning and strategy specialist. Right. So how did I become interested in this field? I'm a Detroiter, born and raised, still live in Detroit, always lived in Detroit. One of the main factors for me was growing up around the recession. I saw what it did in my neighborhood, a lot of foreclosures, a lot of the kids that grew up around me were moving and going to high school during the bankruptcy. Well, I went to high school when we had a financial manager. By the time I was in college was the bankruptcy. So seeing, the city at its lowest point, freeways did not have any lights, downtown was pretty desolate. Like Midtown was probably the life of downtown when I was initially in college. Seeing that and seeing it change, and also always having a passion for architecture. I love to travel. I love to go to new countries and just seeing how they develop transportation in their buildings and just develop around the people, walking, streetscapes, love planning law, love zoning, and seeing how those change throughout the years to accommodate the needs and changes of people's habits, where they choose to work, where they choose to live, having less kids, probably wanting a smaller home, developing more multi-unit rather than single family homes, just adapting to change. And I discovered myself really in college. Initially, I wasn't in the urban planning realm. I did not know what urban planning was. I had a um, I had a counselor. He was from Chicago and he was my favorite counselor. And I'll go to him every semester just to chat. And he told me, you know, we struggle being inner city people. We struggle in the STEM. I'm not going to discourage you from STEM, but I'm going to encourage you to take other classes and just see if you find a passion in something else. And I took a class with Jeff Hornet. I'm not sure if he's still here, but I took one of his classes, and it's been the rest is history. I've been in urban studies ever since. So my education and experience, I went to Wayne State for my bachelor's. My major was urban studies. My minor was global studies. My master's is urban planning with a concentration in metropolitan growth. I did a lot of internships. I interned for the city of Detroit. I interned for the Patent and Trademark Office and a private planning firm called Gibbs. I did volunteer on campus with Placemakers, which was basically finding opportunities on campus to make public spaces to get people more engaged and outside of things, such as like putting chessboards near the fountain, just trying to get people outside. And I've been dabbling back and forth between the land bank and the city throughout my career. So a typical day for me, this is more for my current role. I took some stuff off from when I was in demo, but I did have a mixture of both for this PowerPoint. My current task is mainly like comparing assessors data to the database for our DOBA database, looking for any changes in parcel data with the parcel IDs, creating accounts, retiring accounts, helping other teams with reports and dashboards, doing mass updates with the UI, basically a lot of backend cleaning in Excel. The applications I use on a micro level is GIS. I use GIS for reviewing parcels, measuring parcel sizes, X and Y measurements, latitude, longitude. I use the linen map for legal descriptions. So that basically shows you like the traditional drawn maps, and it tells you the numbers for the plots. And I also create maps for other departments. I am self-taught for scripting. I dabble in R. Most of my team use R, but I took it upon myself to learn Python because GIS use Python behind the scenes. And it's a lot of resources online to help you learn it rather than R. R, I feel like you may need more of like a statistics background, but either way, there's many scripts or many languages. Just use what best fits your needs. But I use those for more of a tabular level, just seeing thing in a mass, especially because we're dealing with like tens of thousands of accounts. You need like a script to run that. Excel is just not going to get it done. And it's easier and faster to do book uploads, book updates for repetitive tasks. So is GIS a tool or a science? Let's talk about it. One of the things I do is parcel modifications. So what I have here in the green is the current parcel current, which is the base unit map. It's hosted by the assessors database. And I compared that with our database, which is Salesforce. And I matched it probably, I did this a while ago. I believe I matched it with the parcel ID, or maybe it was the address. I don't remember, but I found that MLK is now retired. Myrtle is now retired with MLK. And these are a few of the addresses we still have in our database that needs to be retired, but we need to vet them first. So I use the linen map, which is the very light white underneath the green, to see the numbers. And what you'll do is you'll look at the legal description and compare that to the assessors. And then after a little more vetting, you will determine this isn't, now a road, we can retire it. In some cases, it's probably a parcel that has been split. It's a tiny one. I'm not sure if I can draw real quick. It's a tiny piece right here, which was left over from 2600 Myrtle. That would be considered like a split. We'll need to do a little more vetting to figure out, is the legal description accurate before we add that to our database. And I'll probably replace this 2600 Myrtle. But all of the Myrtles at some point will be replaced from our database once we're done vetting it. But the goal behind that is to maintain accurate data and to help sell and market our vacant lots. So encroachments is another thing I work on. Well, I don't work with on encroachments, I work with encroachments. So they send me the maps they need and I create them. So the team that works on this, they look for DLBA vacant lots and they try and find encroachments with a house or like a boundary. Maybe the person has a vacant lot next to them and they're using it as a driveway. Maybe they put a fence around it, but they haven't actually purchased it. So we want them to purchase these lots. This one is a bit weird because we have the blue right here, which represents the city of Highland Park, and we have the green that represents the city of Detroit. I have this map right here because this is from the assessor's database. The layer is not really lining up the same way mine is. I actually drew this line here because we're trying to show the owner that this parcel is something that they can buy. Are they going to buy it? I have no clue because I'm not sure who wants to pay taxes in two cities, but that's, they're trying to get rid of these parcels. But right here, you can see there's a discrepancy because this boundary line is a little lower. It looks like it's about here, which might be accurate. We don't know because this is a linen map, which was hand drawn. So it could be slightly off. It could also be that our parcel right here, when it was drawn, that may have also been off. there's something off with the data, and we're playing a guessing game right now, but that's some of the things that we're looking at. We're looking at boundary lines and seeing, can we give the parcel to the owner? Should we hold on to it? You know, it's up to our discrepancy. So if I had an audience to ask, I would ask this question. Let me see if my video will play. So when I was in demo, somebody had came to me and they said, we have a bunch of dirt that we need to store. We need it to be on the west side of the city, and it needs to be in a low density area. That was the only thing that was given to me. So I'm thinking, what is some filters I can use? Like, what is some data that I can use to slim this down? So let's go to the next. If I had an audience, I would ask the question, but let's go to the next. What I used to figure out what parcel should we store this data at was the US Census data, and I took population density. I also took demolition data and filtered by the council districts for 176, which represents the west side of the city. And I took demo pipeline parcels because we had legal authority to actually store these on the parcel. And I looked at commercial structures because it would be a large enough parcel to not interfere with any residential structures. So if we look at the map, you can tell that the yellow is low density, the red is high density. And then the dots represent the residential structures that were in our pipeline at the time. So we had legal authority. It could have been getting abated. It may have been waiting for a demo contractor. It may have been anything but demolished. If it was demolished, it was switched to demolished, and then it will be moving out of our pipeline. But anything prior to demolition and in the abatement, it will be in our pipeline. So it was safe for us to store it there. And I just chose a school. So it's a large enough surface lot to store data. It's not a whole lot going on in the area. It was just one address to at least present to whoever requested for this information. So the pros and cons of my work. I won't really say there's pros and cons, but I will say what is required of you is to be a problem solver. People will come to you with problems such as storing dirt, and you have to figure out, with the data that I know, what can I do to filter down and give them a more sizable viewpoint to their needs. Another thing is you have to love to analyze data, look at it and say, is this good enough? Can I slim it down a little more? What is the bigger picture? You have to know how to see it without necessarily seeing it on the map as well. You know, sometimes you're working behind the scenes, you're working in Excel a lot. And I think it's very crucial to enjoy your industry. I love demolition and construction. I currently working more with vacant land, so I'm not seeing the work happen, but I'm moving things around, and I love seeing the parcels and reading the legal descriptions. Zoning and parcel law was also a love of mine. So for now, this is where I'm at. And the secrets to success, I just say find your niche, discover what you're good at, discover what you like. I'm a visual person. I love the arts. I love maps. I love charts. I love colors and diagrams. I understand things better on graphs and tables. So figure out what you love and see if you can insert that into your day-to-day life. And networking. So every aspect of my career has been through networking. I got my foot in the door through interning. I mean, it was a minute, but I was literally on the Michigan Association of Planning looking for addresses to send my resume. Any opportunity to intern, I was doing it just to get my name out there. When I transitioned from planning and strategy to GIS, somebody had left the department, and I went to the manager and I'm like, hey, I took one class. Can you give me a chance? And I was there for 3 years, and here I am now. I still work with it. I expanded it a little more. Now I'm mainly focused on learning Python, but it never stops. The networking never stops. And that's all I have. The barcode is a link to my LinkedIn.
It's fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's, I mean, like I always have a set of questions I want to ask, and I'm like, man, you just answered like probably half of them just then. That's your career thus far has been very, very impressive, and it's kind of interesting because obviously a lot of people come to a career with GIS with a lot of different skill sets, a lot of different approaches to how they'd like to use the data that they're either collecting or cleaning or analyzing. But like it shows that you have taken all those things to a kind of the next level. You have a really analytical approach to your work, and it's really impressive. Versus, I'll put it this way: in a lot of cases, a lot of GIS technicians, less the researchers, but the technicians, they don't necessarily do a lot of that analysis themselves. They rely on this ingenious tool that we have to do it for them. And it sounds like you have kind of taken it further than that in the sense that you've already applied an analytical lens to it before you even start, looking at the data. That's really impressive. I'm assuming that makes you even more effective as a practitioner that uses it. Yeah. So I want to circle back to talk more about kind of these latter, close to the current stages of your career. But, because of the fact that the primary audience for this kind of talk are aspiring GIS users at whatever level, whether they want to be urban planners, whether they want to apply this technology and this skill set to marketing or anything else, or whether they're staying very much in the urban studies lane and going to go into research. I'm kind of curious, and you alluded to some of this, but I'm kind of curious as to what drew you to GIS and why you thought it would be important to learn. Or did you just stumble on it? Oh, I had no idea what this was,
I took GIS in undergrad, and I did not take it in grad school. I'm not too sure why. Maybe because I didn't want to pay more to take the same class over again. But I think working in demo and seeing it in action motivated me. And I was like, I could do that. I was doing more initially in demo. I was doing more planning. So, for example, if somebody illegally dumped tires on a property that needed to be demolished, I'll create a scope of work for a contractor. And I'm like, it's okay, it's cool. I felt like my resources could be better used someplace else. And I did a lot of on-the-job learning in demo. And really, they just gave me a chance, and I ran with it. So it was really luck. I guess you could say it was really luck. And I took a chance on myself. I did not have a whole lot of experience besides just a semester.
All right, I see that Damari has a question. I know you had one earlier during your presentation, so I felt that I should probably let you flesh everything out before I invited more questions. So Damari, feel free to unmute and ask a question.
Okay. Good afternoon, Raven.
Hello.
I'm actually part of one of Dr. Bettis's GIS courses, and I'm actually I like the course because I'm an industry professional while studying civil engineering at Wayne State University. But my primary question is is the GIS system like effective when it comes to drafting addendas? If I don't, I'm not sure if you know what an addenda is, or if that consists of like your scope of work, or like I don't know. Could you tell me more on like how could GIS be more like impactful in the construction industry, if that makes sense?
I'm not sure what that word is, but I did go to a GIS conference in San Diego. I think it was 2 years ago. And literally, you have people from every walk of life. You have people working in FEMA, you have people working in construction and engineering. One of my friends, he has his own private firm, and he basically works with everybody. They have utilities, people work in utilities, they work in there's different extensions in GIS for what you would work in. I can't really go into the nitty gritty of it because I don't know a whole lot regarding engineering, but I can tell you there are plenty of engineers that use GIS.
Absolutely so. Yeah, I was going to say to follow up on Damari's question. So, and an addendum, obviously can mean kind of a modification to any project, or like the portion after scoping it out, like what you do next. But in terms of how we can apply this skill set to, like, civil engineering, which is, Damari's major. Yeah, there's so many elements of like looking at context and analyzing context. And, in some of the labs we've done in class, like we have, like, so I think we have a lab where we like analyze soil, and like looking at that, the particular kinds of soil content, things like that are going to be crucial in terms of knowing how to build what's less expensive, or how to build less expensively based on local terrain and circumstances. So there are a lot of great opportunities to incorporate GIS,
Yeah.
into what we do. And so that's one of the reasons I was excited to have Damari in this class, because like there will be a lot of application for, a lot of the skills that he'll learn, that Raven, you've already mastered. It's such a versatile, not just software, but like even a way of thinking. It's just really, really great for a lot of the both highly conceptual fields as well as very concrete, decision making crucial fields. So yeah, so GIS has a lot of great applications pretty broadly.
I will say, when I was at that conference, I did do a 3D model. It was one of the classes they had. So yeah, they do have the 3D models for the building. Since I've been here at the DLBA, I did use FEMA data. So they wanted to put a section or a field for flood zones, mainly for the Jefferson Chalmers area. So I was able to go to it's AGO. Esri, you may know it. I'm trying to think like what is where you will go for everybody's data that they're sharing. It's AGO. Is that what it's called?
And so I'm like, I'm not entirely sure.
Okay, so I believe it's AGO. So basically,
Yeah.
that's where organizations share their data. So FEMA has all the flood zones through insurance companies and just whatever they're tracking. I was able to take that and then run I believe I ran a buffer. I don't remember, but I may have run a buffer to select the neighborhoods that were within a certain radius of a flood zone. So then I can enable that data into our database to basically say, like, this house is within 30 feet of a flood zone. It's a high risk, things like that. So there's a lot of ways that GIS can be used, and there's a lot of data. If you have access to it, I'll definitely encourage you to go on the website and just search the maps out there. Like, so many organizations share their data. It's mind blowing.
Excellent. For the most
I
part, I've
think
been
that,
directing them to like the Open Data Portal and like the Detroit Open Data Portal. I'm like, that's such a great source of it. But
Yeah,
this
that one too.
AGO or whatever, even more. Sorry, Damari, you were gonna say.
yeah, I got another question. I'm sorry, man. So the next question is the GIS systems like is it used typically when they're like is a property or like lots. You mentioned that you worked with the Detroit Land Bank. So in accordance to that, like, do they use the GIS systems for zoning, or how does that look from a
So
zoning like?
there's a department for zoning. I'm not sure exactly. I don't think that's the assessor's office, or is that planning maybe? But they'll probably have their own GIS analysts that'll do that. If it was maybe like a smaller municipality, maybe like Farmington Hills or something, they may have all that stuff in-house. What will happen here is we only maintain our database. So our database is used with Do It, if you're familiar with Do It. They're the data and innovation department that work for the city. They basically connect all the data with like BSEED, which is Building Engineering Safety Department. I don't know if they work with the water and sewer. They will have their own GIS people, but for the most part, they try and get everybody on the same platform. So then everybody can kind of dig into each other's data. Do It tends to be the liaison that can flush it all out and just make sure everybody gets what they need. Regarding me, I'm mainly just focusing on parcels and Detroit Land Bank owned parcels that they're trying to sell and maintaining the data to make sure it's accurate with the assessor's office. So if somebody is purchasing a lot and they're combining it with the lot next door, that'll be a combo. If they're trying to, like if they demolish a big, I'm trying to think, what's that building that they just demolished on Grand River that used to be the mall? You're not familiar?
River? Oh, was it the Hudson's building? The old one?
Yeah, I thought it starts with an M. It's on Grand River and Greenfield.
Yeah, I'm like,
They just
I know.
demolished it
I
for the
even know the
bridge.
spot you're taking. Yeah, and I drive past it a fair amount too, and I'm like,
It's escaping me, but
yeah.
that would be like two big parcels. And what they may do, they might split it up, just so they can sell it to individual people and they can develop something different, or they'll rezone it and then they'll send it to the assessor's office. The assessor office will send it to us, or we'll do like a script to just look for matches, be like, this address is not matching the parcel ID here. Because once you do a split or a combo, the parcel ID change, at least for the city. So parcel IDs differ depending on the municipality. But we're just maintaining the data integrity for the city of Detroit's, and yeah, through parcel data. Yeah.
Saying that sounds like highly technical. The especially when you were kind of discussing like the legal aspects of how some of these parcels, what we might think of as like, this is a coherent parcel. There's there's a property on it and there's this much frontage and things like that, but there might for some reason be either whether there's a discrepancy with between the linen maps and what we currently have or something else. It seems like there's a lot of room for legal fuzziness in there
Yeah.
that can create some problems. I'm kind of curious how, and I don't mean to like put you on the spot with that, but just like kind of helping us understand how GIS as a tool helps you work through that potential fuzziness, because like if there's just someone like without a survey, if someone's like trying to make decisions about like where a parcel starts and stops, the legal kind of boundaries of it, without having like a really powerful geography based tool, like I feel like there's a lot of room for mistakes. So I'm kind of curious as to
I mean, even with the encroachment maps, I do what is asked of me. They need a map, I create a map. Was I the biggest fan? The map that I had in my presentation, I wasn't the biggest fan of it because I don't really like fuzzy data, and because it overlaps a municipality, I feel like the safe thing would be to do is to look at the deed. And I think under any legal discrepancy, they're probably going to say, look at the deed. What does the deed say? This deed says it belongs in Highland Park. Nobody expects you to purchase this lot on the Detroit side and pay taxes on it. This house been here forever. Now, once the house gets demolished, if it ever gets demolished, then they may say, just to keep it safe, let's set it back just to make sure it's not on that line. Or maybe they're just not going to build it on the line at all. I don't know what came first. I'm not sure how old that house is. I don't know, was the house built before, I think, most of the boundaries, and of course annexes happened as well. I don't know, were most of these maps drawn in like the 1930s, 1950s? I'm sure there's multiple maps. I'm sure the lines have changed and been moved around many times. So,
Yeah.
So who am I to say like where this house belongs? It predates me. You can just try and give as much accurate data as you can. And, I think at some point, as hundreds of years continue down the line, we're going to revisit that house, and then they're going to say, okay, it's time to demolish it. Now we're going to pick what city we want to be in.
Yeah, it's wild. It does seem that even though we tend to think of a lot of the processes by which we analyze land and kind of set boundaries as being highly analytical, but sometimes it is really, I won't say arbitrary, but some of these things do lend themselves to not being so objective. Sometimes obviously there's politics involved, but like,
yeah,
but yeah, like even deciding on what where a municipal boundary is, and if it extends to the back of a lot, or if somewhere in between. Yeah, I know that can be something that obviously causes a lot of administrative headaches, but yeah, just in general, even for that homeowner, especially, like, where do you pay taxes and whatnot?
Yeah.
So,
if there's a fire, who is going to come?
exactly.
There's also some encroachments that I did where it was more of like a newer development. So these houses were probably built in like the 2000s, and the houses are offset by the slightest. So that creates an issue as well. It just so happened to be these homes were probably built right before the recession. So they weren't maintained. They probably did not even finish the development. So a lot of those homes were demolished. So they're trying to get the people who still live there to buy the side lots because their home is on the boundary line. Now, can you force them to purchase it because it was a construction area? You can't force them to purchase it, but hopefully get them to buy it, maybe try and get them to take it so you can donate it, just so you can get that tax revenue, and then they can take care of the lot because technically their home is on it. It's a lot of construction errors that takes place. I think now with modern day technology, we will hopefully see less of it. But back in the day, a lot of errors when it comes down to parcels.
I believe it. And especially, again, in our city where there's so much, kind of churn in terms of, obviously, like, structures on property, and then structure being demolished, and perhaps this parcel has been informally subdivided, and then there's a lot of it, things that when someone like decides to want to purchase a portion of a lot, ideally you'd have to obviously purchase the whole thing, but I know that there's sometimes administrative ambiguities in terms of, has this been platted separately? Is this, so there's just all sorts of room for strangeness. All right, so going beyond that kind of rabbit hole, which we could definitely go down more, I'm kind of curious in terms of again, kind of looking back to you as a student at Wayne State in the process of kind of, I can't remember exactly what the timeline is, if you were already working for the city when you started this journey with GIS, or if this started more after you were finished. But I'm curious as to the tools in GIS that you have found to be, especially in your first job, outside after you graduated. what were like kind of the most effective uses that you had for GIS? Like what were like, not only I used buffers, I mean, sure, that too,
Mhm.
but what skills did you find to be the most useful for you earlier in your career?
Okay, so I started at the land bank my first semester in grad school. And then I was working as a GIS analyst while I was also in school. So it all kind of went simultaneously together. Some of the tools that I find to be very crucial, I will say you can't do anything if you're not using the attribute table. um, Now, I used to do a lot of joins. Like before I familiarized myself with Python, I did joins in GIS. Spatial joins were my favorite. um, I love the select features of like selecting. You can select by, lasso,
Yeah.
LASSO,
And you can just like free
or
draw, yeah, around it. Yeah.
yep, that's one of my faves. Or you can use the query and basically do it through like the neighborhoods, or if you clean your data pretty well, hopefully you can add some other things and just like filter it like that. Um, I like the fact that you could, I feel like I gotta look at it to explain. If I needed
Yeah.
to, let's say, for example, I'm trying to select properties in a particular neighborhood that is over a certain square footage. I
So
could
that
do all of
attribute,
that,
yeah.
do all that in the attribute table, select it. I can create a column in the attribute table, and I forgot what the command is in the attribute table, but you can select everything you want and just say add this
Yeah.
and put whatever, label it over 300 square foot. I
Yeah.
like how easy it is to just analyze in GIS along with making beautiful maps.
No, the field calculator and everything else is crucial.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
being
it
able
is.
to modify, yeah, stuff like that, especially when you're dealing with large amounts of data.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's I definitely can say yes, 100%. So I'm also curious because at least in my course, because I teach the intro to GIS, the in-person section, we do have an advanced GIS course as well, taught by Daryl LaFlamme, I think currently. Um, we, at least in my class, we only teach the most basic aspects of scripting or queries. Like, and I think it's SQL is the language you use, SQL. Um, but we, obviously there's no introduction to Python. None of us use R. I started learning it myself, but I'm not very adept at it yet. I get
I'm not a
sidetracked. So
fan.
just, at some point we get there. But yeah, and I like stats, so it helps. But Python is something I've always wanted to learn. But I've been kind of curious as you are using this tool in different ways. Um, how important is it to like maybe try to get some of that like script building know-how, like I feel like a lot of jazz technicians can have a pretty decent career without knowing how to do any particular kind of script building. You don't have to learn Python and things like that, but I know it can certainly be a help for you. Do you feel like you would be able to do the things that you're doing now without acquiring that extra kind of bit of knowledge?
So when I was in demo, I wanted to learn Python, but I had no real motivation to do it because the data that we were working with was so small, like probably 8,000 properties, give or take. Like it's fluctuating. Now I'm working with about 60,000 parcels. So it's, I don't want to say it's impossible, to filter without, you know, without a script? It's possible. I think it's probably going to be time consuming.
Yeah, very inefficient, I would say.
And it's going to be slow. Like, I love Excel. Like, Excel, you add the colors. I love colors, but Excel crash all the time when you're using heavy data. So it depends on how much data, like what is the load that you're using. If you're doing something small, I say throw that in Excel, you will be fine. If you're working in a department that's using not a lot of heavy data, you'll be fine. If you want to do like basic scripting, like you may have like a request where somebody did a survey 123. This is an example from demo. A survey 123, and they wanted to extract the pictures from the survey, and they wanted to change the file name to the address on the 123. A script will be probably the best way to do it. I can't really think of another way. There might be another way, but you can easily go on the Esri website and say, I'm trying to extract photos and rename it, and you will find resources. And you don't have to master, how to write a script. You could just learn how to do little things like that and just spit it out, and you would survive and you'll be perfectly fine. I say it depends on your organization, how much data you're dealing with. That would probably determine if you need to, but times are changing as well. When I was learning GIS in undergrad, I don't really remember learning Python or any kind of script. We probably just did SQL. And most of my SQL skills came from our database, because when you do reports, you got a SQL. So that stuff will come naturally. Once you put it all together, I think it would just be best to market yourself, because times are changing. So I would definitely encourage people to at least learn a little bit. I took probably 2 weeks of just YouTube videos and just did practice and just got the basics. I'm no pro, but I manage.
That's excellent. And that's, it's one of the things I do love about GIS is that, while it's hard to like have no training whatsoever and then like open QGIS or ArcGIS and just like start making beautiful maps, like that's rare. There is like, once you get an introduction to it, I feel like it's not that hard to continue to level up to some degree in your skills by, one, like using the program a lot and applying different, like little projects to it, and like trying to figure out how to do analysis and just playing with data that you get from places. But yeah, like you're saying, like leaning on resources like, people doing videos that teach you how to do scripting, or teaching you how to use, more useful for me, in my research, I do like geographically weighted regressions and things like that, and that's something that I wasn't taught how to do in my GIS course, but I knew it'd be a tool that'd be really, really useful. And I really wanted to like learn it, but there was no one to teach me how to do it. So there seems to be a wealth of information out there, both on like the Esri website, other forums, that maybe help a little bit more with QGIS. But again, like YouTube, an endless supply of great, kind of user generated kind of knowledge. So that's really smart of you to up your game and become that much more valuable to your organization by taking it upon yourself to learn that skill.
I will say there's not a lot of resources on GIS on YouTube, but what helped me switch over from Mac to Pro was because the website. The website is very good. Like, they did a very good job explaining how to do things. That made that transition for me, because a lot of people have been holding on to the old application Mac. I was one of the people. I held on to it as long as I could until I saw the website, and they just made it very easy for self-taught people to just figure it out. Even if you get the book, I did the training. The city of Detroit had a free training that I did, and I got this thick book, and it's just easy to follow the instructions and just figure it out. Now, I will say, and I'm not trying to generalize. Some people who are very good at, the behind the scenes making scripts, I don't know if they necessarily are the most visual people. So do they make the
That's
most
fair.
pretty maps? I don't know if they make the most pretty maps, but they, they do the behind the scenes stuff, and they get the job done. I feel like people who are very computer scientist based, they think differently than people that are more visual. But I think having a balance, having like a spatial analytics person and having like a traditional GIS person and having them come together, or even taking those skills and bringing them together, will make you a very marketable person in this career.
Yeah, that's excellent. And that's true. That's true. I've encountered that same thing where I've had, data scientist friends that do end up doing some geospatial, and yeah, and I'm like, oh, the amount of information they can bring to it, or the volume of data that they can process is impressive. But the maps are not always, they're not always
No.
beautiful to look at. And that, is, I've been proven wrong with that too, but I think generally speaking, you're onto something. What was I had another question that was a departure from this subject. I know we're like kind of running. We're not at a time, but we're it's the hour is late. I was oh man, like I just had it. It had something to do kind of still with your career path. Just wondering about like making the transition from working for the city, in the construction and demo, to your current job. Like, what is the skill set difference between the two?
The biggest thing was learning how to script. And also just the land bank, especially inventory, is dealing with everybody's data. Like, it's dealing with compliance data, it's dealing with sales, marketing, demo. It's touching so many organizations or so many departments that you're just trying to get the most basic understanding of what everybody is doing. And it could be a lot. Sometimes I feel like I'm a jack of all trades but a master of none. Compared to like working in demo, I could focus more on the nitty gritty of what they're doing and what the needs are. So that was probably the biggest transition. It's just dealing with something that was micro and transitioning to macro. But I think it helps you figure out what your preferences are in the workforce. In the future, when I make whatever transition that may be, I'll say, yeah, it was cool, but I think I prefer this over that, or I think I do like, making more maps rather than doing more tabular stuff. Like, through experiences, you'll figure out what is your preferences. And if you have you know, the pleasure of being selective about where you work, hopefully, you can stick there for a while. I love demo and I was there for 4 years. I will still be there, if there was more demos to do. But, that's a good thing. It's a good problem to have that, there's not a lot of demos left to do. Eventually, especially with the new administration, their goals are going to change, and, our goals will change.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's true. As a city goes through its evolution, or as administrations change and their priorities change, it's nice to be able to, again, like upgrade your skill set so that you can, roll with those changes and be versatile. So that, so that if there's shifts in the department, then you can still be of use, and thus not be kind of vulnerable to the whims of the market. So that's smart. Yeah, it's really smart. I was kind of curious because this has very much to do with this theme here. So it's something I encountered a little bit when I was in planning practice. Um, I found that, because of the fact that I had, working kind of knowledge of GIS, I could use it pretty capably. Now I think, I'm a much better user, stronger user now. But I found that I got steered towards that being like a big part of my job when that wasn't like what I'd signed up for as an urban planner. So I'm kind of curious, because obviously a lot of your job has revolved around using GIS, but I can't help but wonder if you've ever felt kind of pigeonholed in this role. I ask this question with every job, with every GIS talk, because some people have really had this experience of like, okay, well, people know that you do GIS, so now all you do is GIS. And I'm just kind of curious if your experience has been anything like that at your past jobs, or current job.
I actually like making maps, so when they come, I'm gladly taking them. I never been in a situation where I exclusively made maps. When I was in demo, I was a GIS/data analyst. So we did a lot of data cleaning, updating the database, a lot of Excel work, making reports, making dashboards. We supported other departments with maps as well as reports, anything that required demolition data. Same situation here. I haven't made a map in maybe 2 weeks, but I've been doing the like if it was up to me, I'll do it every week maybe. But I've been using it for the parcel modifications. So I just have a template that I keep and I just go to it. Maybe I'll refresh a layer just in case any changes. I don't really expect much changes for assessor data. They probably change it a couple of times a year, but I'm in it multiple times within the week. So I'm like, not much is changing. I'm using it as a tool. Most times I'm using it as a tool. I do know there are some people that are strictly GIS analysts, and maybe if you worked in like maybe do it where you're dealing with the city of Detroit, everything, and people don't have GIS analysts in their department because the department is just too small for it, then you're going to go to them and have them make a map for you. They're probably doing it more as a science, I guess. Me, I feel like I mainly use it as a tool.
Excellent. All right. So since we are about to run out of time, one question that I feel like is crucial to ask, and I feel like you've already provided a lot of this answer now, but I'm curious if you have any more. What is some advice you would give to any student? Obviously, there's a variety of interests, a variety of career paths, and things like that. But based on your experience, um, what's some advice that you could give to the average student, who is going to graduate from Wayne State, having taken either Intro to GIS or Intro and Advanced GIS? Like, what advice would you give them in terms of how to pursue opportunities, in terms of how to um, best utilize their skill set? You as someone who is in the thick of this and has done very, very well making that transition, what would you say to the average student?
Somebody just asked me that, and I thought that was quite a hard question
I assume
because
so, and I feel bad for not prepping you on that one, but
it should not be a hard question, but I feel like so much stuff has changed, and I graduated um, from grad school in 2022, so that was like 3 years ago. And I think within that time, like this whole AI thing is like blown up. So it's like I have no clue how that factors into all of this. That's something that we talk about at work a lot. Like, how does it affect our own work? But all I can say is continue to be a self-starter. If you have the application, continue to find projects, create your own maps, create a whole portfolio. and just be as prepared, as you can, because there are definitely, jobs that are looking for people out of college. They're coming in with skills that I did not have. I had to learn it myself. So I say just continue to exercise and develop as a analyst and network, go to events, just try and mix and mingle, get your name out there, networking, and just continue to grow in whatever it is. If it's GIS, if it's urban planning, there's always going to be networking events. People don't like to go outside that much, so it's probably a little harder.
True,
It's probably a
true.
little harder, but utilize LinkedIn, add those people, add me. I can try and help. I'm trying to help myself, but I can try and help too. It's tough because, so much has changed and you just have to adapt with the changes. But, I'm not sure if interning is still a popular thing. Go out there and put your resume in some people's mailboxes. I'm not talking about email. I mean, go to the office and put your resume in their mailbox. Get your face out there.
Huge. Oh,
Yeah.
Damari has one more question.
I'm sorry, I know like we over the time, but like the conversation has been extremely engaged and explosive. I'm so productive
Thank
day to
you.
day, especially as like a civil engineer study. And right now this just amplifies my ability to be productive. But I think like when you say like because I'm also an industry professional while studying civil engineering, right? And like I'm actively working in my career, and I've always iterated this to Dr. Bettis too. But I actually recently got a chance to actually work on my resume after like graduating high school 2019. So it's been a legit like 5 to
Nice.
6 years. So yeah, but I finally modified it. I went through this system where they actually was able to grade the resume. I was like at an 89. And then like I was working on it because I'm a brick and stone mason by trade. And I came across this job site and I was talking to an industry professional who didn't have the net, like he had the education, right, and the experience as a general contractor. And obviously, like his level of knowledge, the empirical knowledge that he obtained was like so like beyond average, right, as a construction professional. But one thing he highlighted is that uh, one thing he highlighted primarily is that when engineers come across like construction job sites, like I'm studying civil engineering, architects is one of the civil engineers, and he says like they'll come into the job site and direct or kind of try to like overtake the site without even knowing the first thing when it comes to working with actual structural components and designing, that infrastructure. And when we got more in depth in a conversation, I gave him a heads up. Like I've always prioritized my education, but to, narrow down to what I was getting at is that I was actually able to give him my my resume. That was the first person I
Nice.
ever gave a resume to outside of like, cause like I went to high school, went to trade school, and then most of the time it was networking that granted me the opportunity, to work on like construction projects as a young brick and stone mason. And like now that I'm 2 years legit into studying civil engineering, I actually gave a construction professional my resume who didn't, go to the collegiate level. And so it was just interesting that you said that because I kind of like picked when you say just drop your resume off into the mailbox. I kind of
Yeah.
pictured it. That's exactly what my experience was. So I
Well,
just thought
congratulations.
yeah, thank you.
Congratulations. I always said if I had a little stronger of a math background, I wanted to do civil engineering. I've always had a passion for that as well. But when you email and you put it on the website, it get lost in so many people's other applications. And then now they have technology that's like filtering through it. I say, if you know somebody, physically hand it to them. Have it easily. Oh, I could easily email it to you. Just have it there, like have it ready. I have my resume always up. Well, I want to update it. It's not always updated, but I want to update it, and I just save it in my phone. just so I can easily send it out.
Excellent.
Always keep it updated and just network. That's really all I can say. Don't be afraid to ask questions, especially as minorities. Like sometimes you have to you got to go to people's desks and say, hey, what do I need to do to get my foot in the door? I have my resume here. I have this much experience. Sometimes you have to advocate for yourself. So
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's fantastic advice. Again, like you were saying, being a face to these people, because whether it's an algorithm that they incorporate to sift your resume out because it doesn't include some keywords, or whether it's, even if they don't employ that, just the sheer volume of application they might have to dig through is one thing. But if they, Damara, if you, show up and you hand a resume to somebody and say, like, I have this skill set, I'm new to this industry, but I have this skill set. I would love to get a chance to sit down and talk with you about about career opportunities you guys have here or internships you have here. That can really make a huge impression on folks. So, Raven having gone out and kind of, I would use the term hustle in like the most positive possible way. Like, you marketing yourself, you being willing to jump in and look for internships and finding every opportunity to get yourself in front of people that you can both contribute to whatever their mission is, but also they can help you further your career. That's the kind of thing that sometimes is increasingly crucial to get to where you want to get to, both in our industries as well as other ones out there. So yeah, I appreciate the fact that you took the time to tell us about kind of what your journey's been thus far and showed us like kind of how you've gotten here and given us some like really, really good, like on the ground knowledge about kind of how you use that skill set. We really appreciate you spending time with us today.
thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, thanks again. All right. Anyone that watches this recording later, obviously feel free to reach out to me. I'll see if I can have, Raven's contact information. If anyone has any other questions, and I can email them, pass them along to her. But in the meantime, thanks everybody. Hope you all have a good weekend. And we'll see you at the next talk. All right.
Thanks.
Bye, folks. Here we go.